What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel for yet another video. Yesterday we talked a little bit about genetics. Today we're gonna get into nutrition. We're gonna talk a little bit about how can you build muscle and lose fat at the same time, but more importantly, we're gonna be talking about macros. How can you calculate them? How do you know what you need to eat to maintain, what you need to eat to gain, and what you need to eat to lose? So without further ado, let's jump right in. The most basic way to break this down is, it's pretty simple. The concept is simple, it gets a little more complicated, but the most simple form of it is this. If you have more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. If you have less calories than you burn, you're going to lose weight. When you're starting out, before you do any of this, what I would recommend is just write down what you eat every day and start tracking it. Don't modify your diet, just get an idea. Because a lot of people actually tend to overestimate the amount of protein they eat, and they also overestimate the amount of activity that they think they get. They're actually getting relatively low activity compared to what they think they do. They would say they're fairly active because they get a workout in and they're up and moving around a little bit, but the fact is, a lot of us, this day and age, we have a lot of sedentary lifestyle jobs, you know, office jobs or like truck driving, even standing at a cash register. The thing is, you're just standing, you're not actually moving around or anything. Now, without following this advice, without tracking calories and things like that day to day, you may think you're doing okay, but really what you're doing is you're almost walking blind. Because here's the thing, a lot of people will do this. They'll do everything I'm about to talk about, and they'll do really well Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, they'll follow their first couple of meals, and then they'll say, well, I just had a good time with my friends on Saturday and Sunday night. I just went out to a few dinners or whatever. But then what you need to do is you need to look at the calories over the week, because here's the thing, they don't realize how much over they're actually going. You know, you have that big pasta dinner at the Olive Garden, and then you realize that you just messed up your whole week because you went too far overboard on Saturday, Sunday, and you didn't realize it because you thought you're in tune with your body. You can do intuitive eating on Saturday and Sunday, and then at the end of the day, you're wondering, why am I not gaining or losing or cutting or whatever your goal is? You're not reaching it because on these Saturday and Sunday days when you're a little bit more lax, you don't realize how far you're going off the diet. And so it's really important, especially in the beginning, to just stay strict. And I just mean strict as in write down your stuff and know where you're at each day. So how do you figure out how much you need to eat every day just for maintain, right? This is how you do it. You either want to use a BMR calculator or a TDEE. BMR is your resting rate. So that's what your body would burn if you just sat on the couch all day long. Now, TDEE is your total daily energy expenditure. Now, this calculates in just as close as it can what, like, depending on how active you are, what you actually are sitting at. So like, if you're a more active person, let's say you're a UPS driver, your TDEE would be way more accurate than your BMR. But if you sit at a desk, then your BMR is probably better than your TDEE, because it's just hard to calculate an activity. Just in general, it's hard to get your TDEE very accurate. Your BMR is gonna be, it's gonna be roughly good enough, if that makes sense. But throughout this process, when you use this long enough, you'll be able to figure out, like, okay, when I'm at this is what happens. When I'm at this is what happens. So really, anything you do in the beginning right now, following these general guidelines, is gonna really, really improve and really help you. Don't get too set on the BMR and TDEE and thinking like, oh, well, my BMR is wrong, so now this is a waste. It's not, because the last step we're gonna talk about is how you need to just individually adjust your numbers, because at the end of the day, we're all individuals, and there's no calculator to figure out you as an individual. So the best way is just trial and error at that point, but you need these key concepts down in order to get to the trial and error point. Another number you're gonna need while you're calculating all of this stuff out, and really you're just gonna use online calculators, that's the best way. Mind Pump Fitness, they actually have a really good brand new calculator that explains a lot of things in depth, as well as a really, really accurate calculator. The other number you're gonna need is, you wanna find the amount of lean body mass that you have. So you're gonna take your weight, so for example 215, and they're gonna multiply it by your body fat, so let's just say 10%. And then let's round up. So 10% of 215 is about 22 pounds, you know, and then you do the math. So 215 minus 22 is about 193, and then you're gonna need that number. Now let's talk about how you calculate things. Any nutritional or supplement fact on the back of anything that you buy in the store is gonna have the proteins, the fats, and the carbs, right? So what you wanna do when you're figuring these things out is you wanna take proteins times 4. Fats times 9, and carbs are times 4. That's just to get you the calories. So like for example, at the end of the day, if you need 100 grams of protein, 100 grams of fat, and 100 grams of carbs, just to keep things simple in the example here, 100 grams of protein times 4 is 400 calories. 100 grams of carbs times 4 is 400 calories. 100 grams of fat times 9 is 900 calories. So 900 plus 400 plus 400, that would be your total calories for the day. That's just so that you know when you're breaking these things down, and then when you add up at the end of the day, did you reach your goal? Because that's what you're gonna wanna do. Now, like I said, we're gonna be focusing on proteins, fats, and carbs. So let's get into it right away. So proteins are an essential macronutrient. And what that means is that they're essential for living. You need this to live. No matter who you are, you have to eat some protein or your body's not gonna function right. Other things that protein is good for is it helps build muscle. That's what your body uses to turn into muscle. It's muscle sparing, meaning like if you're cutting, as long as your protein is still a relatively high number, you're not gonna lose as much muscle. You're gonna lose mainly fat. And it's also satiating. So that means that it can help out with your appetite. If you have a relatively high protein intake, then you won't get as many cravings and things like that. It'll be easier to stay on track. A good rule of thumb is 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per lean body mass. So that's where that number comes in that I told you guys to calculate earlier, the lean body mass. What you want to do is, so in the earlier example, 192 I think it was, or 193, either way, times 1 is the easiest way to do it. You need 192 grams of protein for the day, and that's how you calculate your protein. You can move on. Pretty simple. But at the lowest number usually recommended is about a 0.7. So if you did 0.7 times 192, you could also use that number. Later on, like I said, for individual wise, you could play with that to see. Some people have some digestive issues. If they have too much protein, they get stomach aches and things like that. That's when you want to bump it down a little bit until you don't have those problems. But most people are good with a 1-to-1 ratio. Now that we have our proteins down, let's roll into fats a little bit. So fats is also another macronutrient. It's something that you need. Fats are essential. It helps with brain function and all kinds of other things like that. What you want to aim for is about 15 to 20%. 15% being low, 20% being high. If you can function at a low fat and you like it, that's good. If you can function at a high fat and you like it, that's also fine. The thing is with the fats, you need to be careful because some people, especially women, will have hormone imbalances and they can have other things like that happen to them if they go too low in the fats, because it is a needed thing. Some really good sources for fat would be eggs, dairy, fish, avocados, nuts, olive oil, things like that. Those are healthy fats and good to use in your diet every day. Like I was talking about before with proteins, this is another thing, especially fats and carbs. What you're gonna want to do is just play with them because everybody is different, and you're gonna want to, once you get your protein's a pretty set one, right? So let's just pretend that that's 20% of your diet and you have 80% to play with. What you want to do is like 40-40 between fat, carb, and then 20-60 and 60-20. And you just want to, after you get things rolling, you kind of want to play with it like that on a weekly basis just to see like, okay, did I feel better with the higher fats or did I feel better with the higher carbs? And things like that. And that's where, again, individualization comes in. For an example really fast, I had a trainer way back when, and if I told him I was hungry, he would increase my protein. And then I said I'm still hungry, he would increase my protein. And all that did was give me stomach aches. I'm eating 10 ounces of protein at every meal, and I'm really still not seeing any improvements. Shortly after that, I had another trainer, and she did high carbs. And yet again, that just was not working out for me. Now, I'm kind of at a healthy mix where I do actually, for the first time, have a little bit higher in the fats, and everything has just been improving drastically. I've actually never looked better than I have now. And that's just playing with it. At the end of the day, when you break it down, it's not as complex as you think. It's really just taking the time out you know, to write things down and just be diligent about it that way. Now let's talk a little bit about carbs. So basically what you want to do is you want to start out finding your proteins and your fats, and then the carbs is just basically whatever's left over. That's the easiest way to get around this. And then play with those ratios just like I talked about. So carbs is the one thing that you don't need. You can have 0 carbs. However, most people don't have the greatest workouts or energy levels or effects, you know, when they do have low carbs. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can try it if you want to. I know there's some fad diets out there like keto and things like that people swear by it. If that's you and it works for you, that's fine. But for me, definitely not. Any day you're gonna, like, say, go on a hike, or you know you're gonna be more active, that's when you should probably lower your fats and raise up your carbs, maybe for a little bit more energy. Or you could do the opposite. It doesn't matter. Like I said, just play with it, see what works for you. Just be aware though, if you're one of those people that likes to have little to no carbs for a while, and then you go home to visit, or you go out on vacation or something, and you're gonna have that big bowl of pasta or something like that, just know, usually you're gonna just blow up. You're just gonna explode, because the body then trains itself to get everything it needs from proteins and fats, and then you introduce carbs again, and it's just completely thrown off, and it doesn't know what to do with the carbs, it just stores them. But if you keep carbs in your diet, it always knows what to do with them, and you won't run into that issue. It's just something I want to bring up to you guys in case you think, well, I really like low carbs. That's okay, but I would introduce them to your diet maybe once or twice a week so that you don't develop that weakness for them. So guys, to go over a quick recap here, the first thing you want to do when doing this is you want to figure out your goal. Do you want to gain weight? Do you want to lose weight? Where do you want your calories to be at? Or you could even be at a maintain, that's fine too. After that, after you have your goal set, you want to determine your BMR or your TDEE, and then that's going to be the number that you go off of. Let's just say it's 2,500 for example. That's going to be your target for every single day. Don't forget proteins, they're the most important. Start with those. You definitely need those. Like I said, 1-to-1 is the easiest way to do it. And then you're going to roll into your fats. Like I said, 15 to 20%, pretty good. And carbs is the last thing that you should worry about. Like I mentioned before, just make sure that you're playing with the fats and the carbs, because that can be a really fun part. You know, you can play with it and you can just take notes and see how you feel day to day. And it's going to be really rewarding once you narrow down what you like, because then you're just going to be enjoying the process. And the last thing I want to add is just remember that we're all individuals. So like I said, I would recommend whatever number that calculator spits out, let's say it's 2,500, I would aim for the 2,500 every single day for a week or two, just to get things down pat, and then just continually play with your fats and your carbs to see how you feel. And then the third step, I would say, or the third phase would be start going towards your goal. So add onto those calories if you want more muscle mass and things like that, or subtract some of those calories if you're trying to cut up because it is summer and things like that. It's just important because there's no calculator that can figure us all out. We're all individuals. Like I said, for me, I know I do a little bit better with some higher fat intake. A lot of other people, they may do better with higher carb intake. Everybody is different, just like we have different body styles, we have different genetics, all that. So once you get the baseline down and you're consistent and persistent, then you can go ahead and start playing with the numbers and get to where you really want to be. And with that, guys, that concludes our video for today. I hope you learned a lot about macros and how you can calculate them and use them to reach your full potential. If you're watching me on YouTube, be sure to subscribe for more content just like this. If you're watching me on Instagram, be sure to follow. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below if you made it this far, and tag a friend that's into fitness just as much as you and I will see you guys in the next one.